Okay guys, we're back in the man cave. So I'm not actually fishing, but I just wanted to tell this story. I think it's a very unique story. It started in 2002 where I was fishing Acton Park, and I didn't really have the confidence to go all out carping, but I met somebody there who convinced me, and yeah, I could never get past £10 PB, and but I was hooked on fishing and I could caught several carp, but they all seemed to be around that £10 mark. Anyway, as I said, I was just, like it does, it gets a hold of you, and I was just, just any information, just reading, watching, all, like we do. And somebody offered me a trip to go to France. Now, back then it wasn't like it is now, I suppose, and it was just like, France, big carp, let's go. So I was like, yeah, put me on. Yeah, so it was April 2003. And for anyone who doesn't know, I mean, I think back then it wasn't as known as it is now, I guess, because of things like monster carp and stuff. But Lac de St Cassien is in the south of France by Nice. So you're practically in Spain in terms of the weather. And yeah, it's 1,500 acres, although it does go up and down by 30 feet. So, I always call it 1,500 acres, but, people say it's less, but yeah. And the depths of 140 foot deep. So, going from a 1 acre park lake to this, like, basically almost like an ocean, yeah, it was a big jump. So it was an organised trip. 4 of us went. And it was basically a case of take your reels, your terminal tackle, your sleeping bag and your clothes, bivvy, bed chair, rods, pod, oh, you took your lamps as well, sorry. Everything else was included, a boat and stuff like that. Now, we arrived at the lake, and two of us went in the north arm, and me and another guy went in the west arm. And I think the fact that it is in the arms kind of breaks down the size, so it wasn't quite as daunting. So at the time, I am a raw beginner. I've never used a boat. My PB's, like I said, £10. My rigs are pretty much ESP Raptors size 6, and the reel line GR 60 in £15. So yeah, raw beginner, but keen as mustard. So yeah, we got to the lake. We knew we'd been told there was a chance of blanking. We knew it was a hard water, but we definitely didn't know how deep we'd gone. And yeah, so the first day it was just a case of got the rods out, and yeah, in the morning I went in the boat, never done it before, just went out looking for spots. As it turned out, most of the fishing that I did was in the margins. The West Arm, there's a nature reserve down at the bottom of the West Arm, and it's where they all go to spawn. So the fish travel through there to get to the spawning areas, and we were there at the right time of year for that. So it was just a case of flicking them out in the margins, really, and yeah. So on the second night, I actually had a run. I had a new PB, £14. Yeah, so it's made up, and it just sort of gives you the confidence. The lake itself, the bottom of the lake, because it's like a flooded valley, it's full of old trees and all sorts of stuff. So it really is, it really is one, from the park lake. It's another world. But yeah, the guides were very helpful, and we just stuck to the game plan, and yeah, it paid off really. So I'd also took some handful of spinners with me, like I say, still the coarse fisherman, and I managed a couple of little jack pike as well, which was cool. And then a French guy come over and asked me to come and weigh a £40 carp. Now at this point, the biggest fish I've ever seen is my PB, £14, and we went over on boat because with the size of the lake, you don't walk from swim to swim, you boat. And yeah, I went over and saw my first £40 carp. If I'm honest, I was a little bit disappointed. It didn't look, having caught all these sort of £10 carp and single figure carp, I thought a £40 would be massive. But because I think it's because carp grow sort of proportionately, and yeah, I don't know. I wasn't as blown away as I thought it would be, even though they are fantastic fish. But you know, like the likes of a 20-pound pike, I don't know. It just seems more impressive to me. But yeah, the trip was run by PG Trips. They're no longer operating, as far as I know. It was Paul and Jeff, and yeah, so Nathan come from the North Arm to join us in the West Arm, and he managed in the middle of the day a 46-pound mirror. It was a cracking fish as well. Put the picture up now, and he was only a young lad. I knew him. He used to work in a local tackle shop, and yeah, obviously he was blown away. That was caught on a single like 12mm pink pop-up, just put in the edge, you know. So yeah, crazy fishing. But yeah, seeing this fish, I was itching to go. So where we were in the West Arm, again, didn't really know, but I was learning on the job, and where we were opposite Ellis's Point, very famous, obviously. 76-pound mirror was caught in I think it was in the 80s, and it kind of yeah, kind of blew the lid open on Cassien. And so we started on the Wednesday, and coming on the Sunday, I actually had a take and landed a new PB. Thought it was about £30. Didn't want to say too much, but back then everything people sacked up, like, you know, regularly. So the fish was sacked up. Paul and Jeff come down to take some pictures for me, and yeah, it turned out to be a 42-pound mirror. So yeah, so I've gone from £10, I suppose 14, and then to 42. Really, as you can see from the pictures, I've struggled to hold it. It was so awkward. Yeah, so the pictures aren't the best, but I was blown away. It was, you know, it was more than I could have dreamed of. That was the last fish of the week for me, but the kind of the lake, the venue itself, you know, it was just amazing. There was always stuff going on, paddle boards, swimmers, you know, I don't know. And having caught that fish, and personally I could relax, we all turned out to get, well, the four of us, one of us had a 39, everyone else had a 40 plus. So yeah, fantastic trip. I had a couple of bream, and one morning I woke up, and as the swims are kind of, people generally bivvy up sort of, I don't know, maybe say 50 yards between each other, maybe more. And a German guy had set up between us, and he had these little 6-foot rods with little bells on. Anyway, Paul had come down in the morning, check if we were all okay and stuff, and a very friendly guy, and he got chatting to him, and we give him one boilie, and we made him up a rig, one of mine with my GR60, and just give him one boilie. And anyway, next thing you know, his bells are going, and I thought, like, he was, you know, he was using little dead baits and stuff and that, so I thought maybe he's got a little pike or a zander or something. So I went over, and anyway, it was the boy. He said, no, the boilie, they've took the boilie. So I said, right, I better get my net. Anyway, it turned out to be a 35-pound mirror, just like one single boilie chucked into 1,500 acres. It was mental. Such a nice guy. He was blown away, made up, and yeah, the place is yeah, it can make or break you. Like, it's a mad place. If you ever get the chance, definitely go. The water's turquoise. It's absolutely stunning, and yeah, always stuff going on. Like I say, they use it as like almost like beach. It's almost like beach holidays there. So you get loads of tourists, and that's why they ended up banning the night fishing, because it was interfering with the tourism too much. But yeah, it is literally pedlos, like I said, already said, swimmers, everything. It's mad. Yeah, mad place. And yeah, also Paul and Jeff were, you know, so knowledgeable about carp fishing. They've been carp fishing for, at this point, you know, like nearly 30 years or something, right from when it first started back in the day before the hair rig and everything. And their stories were just amazing, and it got me more hooked in carp fishing than ever. Talking about, you know, fishing savvy and just all the different stories, and yeah, so really really good trips. So at this point, I, you know, fell in love with the place, and I booked 2 trips for the following year. So the second trip was in the North Arm. So I didn't say actually before, the lake is split into 3 arms. So you've got the North Arm, I think is the biggest arm. Then I suppose you've got the Central Basin, and then you've got the South Arm and the West Arm. I think the West Arm is probably the smallest. And yeah, went up in the North Arm. There's a nature reserve up there, but some French guys had stitched the swim up, and they basically, I mean, fair play to them, like, but basically there was almost like a rota, and when one would go to work, another one would like rock up and that, and they were absolutely having it. It was just fishing right on the edge of this nature reserve, and they were just having fish after fish. So fair play to them. And I was a couple of 100 yards down. Like I say, you don't like sit right on top of each other there. And the next sort of spot along, and unfortunately only caught 1 carp, but again it was a fantastic trip. I spent most of the week in the North Arm. I motored down. That was an experience. Motoring with all your kit on a boat, in 140 foot of water. It's pretty scary stuff, and it's so open. The North Arm is huge, and there's fire planes that literally skim the water and scoop up water to then drop on forest fires. So yeah, sketchy motoring down there, and yeah, did a few days in the West Arm, but unfortunately just the 1 mirror, 31 pounds, absolutely cracking fish. And again, just so much going on there that it was still a great week. Yeah, so the end of the week ended up in the West Arm, and I heard a story on a podcast the other day about a shooting at Cassien, and it was actually I think it was 2 days after I left, and I'd been speaking to the guy who got shot at, and yeah, that's what it's like. It was starting to get a bit crazy, and yeah, he didn't like where he was putting his rod, so yeah, he took a shot with a rifle from the other side. So yeah, it was literally, I think it was 2 days after I left. Yeah, mad place. So the third trip I went back, it was days only, and basically you camped at a campsite. You drove to the lake every morning, pick up a French stick, which, oh my god, I can't even describe to you. French stick with nothing on. The taste was unbelievable, literally just awesome. Anyway, you pick up a French stick at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're getting picked up at about 10 o'clock at night, and then you got like 5 hours sleep, and then you're back to it all again. And bearing in mind, like I said, it was in the south of France, it was baking. It was literally baking, and you're out all day in it, and there's just no with the nature of the bank and stuff, the rocky nature, it's hard to get things like shelters and stuff, and traveling light because you're just doing days only. I'm not even sure if you're allowed to shelter, but yeah, but basically you're out in it all day, and it was hard. It was really hard going. I started in the West Arm. I had a few fish, some smaller ones. I do remember one of the fish, the water's crystal clear, and I could see it, little common, and one flick of the tail, and it was like here, and then it was just like gone with one flick of the tail. Like actually seeing the fish under the water like that was fantastic. I also caught a terrapin, and yeah, there was poisson chat were a nuisance. They're like mini catfish, and you see on this picture they're all like, they just literally sit in like a bowl of these tiny little catfish, and they just hammer your baits. We was having to use mesh, basically tights, and putting them around the baits, and yeah, and blobbing it with a lighter just to try and slow them down. I remember one of the fish I caught was the bait would literally been whittled down to literally about 4 mil boilie, and I still caught a carp on it. But yeah, real wild fishing. And yeah, then I moved to the famous bridge swim. There's a plateau on one side of it, on the West Arm side, that's about 70-90 yards out, something like that. From the other side, it's more like about 160 yards. So there was a guy fishing on the west side, so I went on the South Arm side. I was having to boat the baits out about 160 yards, like I said. It's a huge plateau, so I wasn't fishing, not like I was fishing close to him or anything really. and he was happy for me to be there too. And yeah, he was doing well. Yeah, and I managed a £16 mirror, and then I managed a 40.5 pound mirror. That one I had to go out in the boat for. It got stuck on something, and it was a hell of a battle out in the boat. First time ever playing a fish from a boat, and it absolutely beasted me. And like I said, it's so mad, the depths in that place, you know, because you've always got the echo sounder on, and it's just mad playing fishing like 80 foot of water and stuff. And yeah, managed to get that one in, and that was a fantastic fish. And then the third fish turned out to be a £25 mirror. Now I got this fish most of the way in, played it from the bank, and it was probably about 20 yards out, and it just got stuck. It caught on the other line. I'm not really sure. I think the other line must have been snagged up, and it was just stuck. It just ended up stuck about 20 yards out, and it was stuck on the surface. Next thing you know, the whole rod pod's over. 3 Delkims under the water, screaming their heads off. Yeah, absolute carnage. Managed to get it up, and managed to get the fish in. And yeah, £25 mirror, biggest hump you've ever seen on a fish. It was, yeah, not the prettiest looking, but really welcome. And then the guy opposite, Robin his name was. Thankfully, I wrote quite a, relatively detailed diary, so that's how I can remember a lot of the stuff. And yeah, he left, so I moved in there just because it was easier, obviously, fishing 70, 90 yards rather than 160 yards. So moved across there for the next day. Like I say, it was grueling fishing, sleeping 5 hours a night, and yeah, in that sun, it was hard work. I moved there. It was my second to last day, I think. I put the baits out, 1, 2, 3, put the rods out, bringing back the third rod, and the first rod ripped off. That turned out to be a 41.5 pound mirror, gorgeous looking fish. Yeah, got some pictures, and yeah, left. So that trip, 240s. So yeah, fantastic place, fantastic memories. I'd love to go again. I'd love to do drive and survive. I'd love to drive and survive, do it myself. Maybe one day, I don't know. But there's so many places to fish, isn't there? Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that. I think it's a crazy story. To go from £10 to £42 PB is nuts. And back then at £42, it was pretty much probably like a £60 that it is today. In terms of the way fish have grown. But yeah, if anyone's got any crazier stories, or just as crazy, or any stories, pop them down in the comments below. Yeah, and if you enjoyed that, I might do some more stories. Okay guys, cheers, thanks, bye now.